Dr. Elena Rice pressed her palm against the viewport glass, watching Earth shrink to a blue marble behind the HMHS Nightingale. The massive white vessel, its hull emblazoned with crimson crosses, represented humanity's first interstellar hospital ship and their newest contribution to the Galactic Confederation. Beautiful, isn't it? Captain Jackson Wee stepped beside her, his cybernetic eye adjusting with a faint whir. Hard to believe that little blue dot-produced creatures the Confederation considers dangerous. Elena smiled wryly. Deathworlders. Still can't get used to that term. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, dangerous wildlife. Radiation, disease, apparently evolving on Earth makes us the galactic equivalent of superheroes. Wei's expression turned serious, or monsters, depending on who you ask. The observation deck's speakers chimed softly. Final preparations complete. Initiating FTL in 3 minutes, announced the ship's AI in a calm voice. Elena brushed her fingers across the scar on her forearm, a reminder of her time as a battlefield surgeon during the resource wars. Funny how our greatest strength in the Confederation comes from our medical knowledge, not our physical capabilities. When most species evolved in gentle environments, they never developed trauma medicine like we did, Wei replied. A broken bone is fatal for a Thraxi. Blood loss that we consider minor kills a Moravian. And now they need us. Elena turned from the viewport, straightening her white uniform. Terminal diagnostic checks, Dr. Curry. A dark-haired man looked up from a holographic display. Alien physiology database integrated and cross-referenced with treatment protocols. We're ready for anything the galaxy throws at us. The deck trembled slightly as they moved away from Earth's gravitational influence. Elena headed toward the medical bay, nodding at crew members as she passed. Humans of all ethnicities worked alongside a handful of alien specialists who had joined their mission. A Thraxi biochemist floating in its low-gravity bubble, a pair of Moravian crystalline beings analyzing light patterns at the sensor station. In the medical bay, staff calibrated equipment for dozens of alien physiologies. Nurse Tanaka demonstrated proper handling of gelatinous Xordian tissue to a junior medic, while Dr. Petrov adjusted medication synthesizers to produce compounds that would be poisonous to humans, but healing for silicon-based life forms. All stations report ready, Captain. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez announced over the comms as Elena entered the bridge. Course laid in for the Arcturus border region. Wei nodded approval. The Confederation Medical Authority has prioritized our deployment to contested territories, where permanent medical facilities aren't possible due to diplomatic tensions. Our neutrality. The ship lurched suddenly. Warning lights flashed. Meteoroid impact. Port quadrant. Rodriguez reported calmly. Damage to oxygen recycler 3. Wei turned to Elena. Casualties. None reported, but we need that recycler. She was already moving. Repair team with me. Minutes later, Elena crawled through a maintenance tube, repair kit between her teeth. The damaged recycler hissed dangerously, venting precious oxygen. 2 crew members worked in the near-zero gravity of the damaged section, their movements precise despite the emergency. Reroute the intake, Elena ordered, sealing a fractured component. Backup systems online. Crisis averted, Elena returned to the bridge, her uniform now smudged with lubricant. Wei gave her an approving nod. Efficient work, Doctor. He gestured toward the view screen, which now displayed the swirling colors of hyperspace. We've left Sol behind. The real test begins now. Elena watched the hypnotic patterns of faster-than-light travel. The Confederation will soon learn. Earth's gravity made our bodies resilient, but Earth's history made our medicine exceptional. The Nightingale accelerated toward its destiny among the stars, carrying the mercy of Terra to a waiting galaxy. Distress signal detected. Navigator Suri Patil announced, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. Moravian research vessel, approximately 2 light hours from our position. 3 months into their mission, the Nightingale's crew operated with practiced efficiency. Captain Wee moved to Patel's station, examining the signal pattern. They're reporting asteroid damage. Wei said, but his tone suggested doubt. Dr. Elena Reyes looked up from her medical tablet, requesting permission to prepare a response team. Wei nodded. Granted. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, plot an intercept course, maximum safe speed. The Nightingale altered trajectory, its engines pulsing with blue-white energy as it accelerated toward the distress call. Something's not right, Elena murmured hours later as the first sensor images appeared on the bridge view screen. The Moravian vessel hung against the backdrop of space, its crystalline hull fractured in multiple places, debris and escape pods scattered across a wide area, twinkling like fractured diamonds. Life signs, we demanded. Fading, reported Dr. Cowrie from the medical station. Multiple Moravian signatures showing critical deterioration patterns. Elena's team assembled in the launch bay, donning specialized suits designed for extraterrestrial rescue operations. Remember, Moravians are crystalline, silicon-based life forms, she reminded her team. Standard trauma protocols won't apply. Use the specialized nanogel for structural repairs. The shuttle departed the Nightingale, approaching the devastated research vessel with caution. Through the viewport, Elena observed damage patterns inconsistent with asteroid impacts. Those are weapons signatures, Rodriguez whispered, pointing to the precise holes melted through the crystal hull. Inside the ruined ship, emergency lighting cast prismatic rainbows across shattered corridors. The medical team moved quickly, locating survivors in a protected central chamber. This one's barely holding molecular cohesion, Dr. Petrov called, scanning a young Moravian whose crystalline body displayed spreading fracture patterns. Elena knelt beside the injured researcher, applying specialized nanogel to the worst cracks. The gel hardened instantly, preventing further deterioration. Thank you. The Moravian communicated through pulses of light from its core structure. The attack. Unexpected. We were defenseless. Attack. Elena asked, adjusting the nanogel applicator. Who attacked you? The Moravians' light patterns fluctuated weakly. Vrexians. They came for our discovery. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, holding a damaged memory crystal. You need to see this, Doctor. The crystal contained fragmented footage. 4 armed reptilian figures boarding the Moravian vessel, weapons drawn, demanding access to research data. Vrexian raiders, Wei confirmed when they transmitted the footage to the Nightingale. Notorious pirates operating in border regions. This wasn't random. They were hunting something specific. Elena stabilized the young Moravian researcher, who had fallen unconscious. Scanning the alien's complex crystal matrix, she detected an unusual data pattern embedded within. Captain, I think our patient here was hiding something in their very structure, she said over the comm. Get everyone back to the Nightingale immediately. Wei ordered, his voice tense. Long-range sensors show multiple vessels approaching. The Vrexians are returning, and they'll assume a medical ship is easy prey. As the rescue shuttle docked, Elena felt the Nightingale's engines shift to combat readiness, a protocol supposedly locked out of hospital vessels, but clearly preserved by the former military captain. The young Moravian researcher stirred in the medical bay, light patterns strengthening under Elena's care. What did the Vrexians want? She asked gently. The crystalline being's lights pulsed in a complex pattern as it projected a star chart onto the wall. Coordinates, it communicated, to ancient healing technology. Technology that could save billions or become a terrible weapon. We couldn't let them have it. Alarm klaxons sounded throughout the ship as the Vrexian vessels entered weapons range. The dance of broken stars was about to begin. 3 Vrexian vessels surrounded the Nightingale, their jagged silhouettes cutting dark shapes against the starfield. Their design favored intimidation over efficiency, hull plating arranged like scales, weapons protruding like claws. They're hailing us, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, her fingers hovering over the communications array. Captain Wei nodded. On screen. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a Vrexian commander. 4 muscular arms crossed over an armored chest, scaled skin modeled with ritual scarification patterns. A cybernetic eye implant glowed red against his reptilian features. Medical vessel. The Vrexian's translator rendered his hissing speech into standard galactic. I am Commander Krasik of the Vrexian Sovereignty. Lower your shields and prepare for boarding. Wei stepped forward. This is Captain Jackson Wei of the HMHS Nightingale, a registered Confederation medical vessel protected under Galactic Treaty 447B. We are treating injured Morivians and cannot comply with your request. Krasik's jaw ridge lifted in what might have been amusement. Confederation treaties mean nothing in this border region, human. Surrender your medical supplies and equipment, or we will take them by force. Alina entered the bridge, having left the Morivian patients with Dr. Curry. She whispered to Wei, "The injured Morivian researcher is stabilizing. We can't abandon them." Wade nodded almost imperceptibly before addressing the Vrexian again. "Commander, perhaps we can reach an arrangement. We are healers, after all." Elena stepped into view of the transmission. "Commander Krasik, I am Dr. Elena Reyes, Chief Medical Officer. We've noticed energy fluctuations in your lid vessel consistent with radiation leakage from your dry systems. Such exposure is particularly dangerous to Vrexian physiology. We would be willing to treat any affected crew members, as per our humanitarian mission." The Vrexian commander's expression shifted, multiple eyelids blinking in rapid succession. "You offer medical assistance to us?" "Of course," Elena replied, keeping her voice steady. "We also have regenerative technology that could benefit your warriors." She gestured to Wei's cybernetic enhancements. "Even severe injuries can be addressed with our methods." Krasik fell silent, conferring with unseen advisors off-screen. Finally, he nodded. "I will come aboard with a small contingent to evaluate your offer." As the transmission ended, Wei turned to Elena. "Clever approach, Doctor. But can you actually treat Vrexians?" "Technically, yes," she replied. "Their biology is in our database. But more importantly, it buys us time. Meanwhile, have security prepare emergency protocols, discreetly." The tension in the airlock was palpable as the towering Vrexians stepped aboard. 4 warriors flanked Commander Krasik, their weapons holstered but clearly visible. Each stood nearly 7 feet tall, their powerful frames dwarfing the human crew. Elena led them to the medical bay, explaining human healing techniques while subtly positioning her staff at strategic points throughout the room. This regeneration chamber has been particularly effective for species with reptilian ancestry, she explained, demonstrating a cylindrical device pulsing with blue light. Krasik examined the technology with apparent interest, but his cybernetic eye constantly scanned the room. "Impressive. The Confederation has kept human medical advances quite confidential." A silent alert flashed on Elena's tablet. The Vrexian vessels were powering weapons and moving into attack positions. "Commander," she said calmly, "would you like a demonstration of our quarantine protocols?" Without waiting for an answer, she pressed an emergency control. Transparent energy fields snapped into place around the medical bay, isolating the Vrexian boarding party. Designed to contain the most virulent pathogens, the fields would temporarily hold even the powerful aliens. Krasik lunged forward, claws extended, only to recoil from the energy barrier. "Treachery," he snarled. "Not treachery," Elena corrected as alarms sounded throughout the ship. "Just good preparation. Your vessels are targeting our engines, Commander. Did you think we wouldn't notice?" The Vrexian's expression shifted from rage to something approaching respect. "You are not the simple healers you appear to be, human." The ship shuddered as the first Vrexian shots struck the Nightingale's shields. The Nightingale shuddered as Vrexian weapons fire impacted its shields. In the medical bay, the containment field flickered, its energy diverted to defend the ship. Power fluctuation in quarantine systems, Dr. Petrov warned as monitoring equipment blinked from green to amber. Elena saw Krasik notice the change. The Vrexian commander flexed his 4 arms, claws extended, waiting for his opportunity. "Prepare emergency restraints," she ordered quietly. The containment field collapsed with the next hit. Krasik burst forward with surprising speed, his warriors close behind. "Take the medical equipment and find the Moravian data," he commanded. What happened next clearly surprised the Vrexians. Dr. Amir Kari, the ship's trauma specialist, stepped directly into a charging warrior's path. His movements were precise, fingers targeting nerve clusters as he sidestepped the alien's bulk. The Vrexian collapsed, limbs temporarily paralyzed. "Pressure point manipulation," Kari explained almost apologetically. "I usually use it to relieve pain." Across the bay, Nurse Tanaka faced another attacker. The slender woman appeared fragile compared to the towering reptilian, but she moved with practiced efficiency. As the Vrexian lunged, she redirected his momentum using a technique perfected in Earth's lower gravity. The warrior crashed into diagnostic equipment, momentarily stunned. "Basic biomechanics," she said with a slight bow. In the pharmacy lab, Dr. Petrov worked feverishly, her fingers flying across a compound synthesizer. "Releasing localized sedative," she announced, activating the ventilation system. A fine mist descended over two Vrexians attempting to access the medical database. They staggered, scales dulling as the carefully calibrated compound, derived from Earth jellyfish toxin, took effect. Captain Wei's voice came over the comms. "All hands, brace for electromagnetic pulse." Elena understood immediately. "Everyone down," she shouted, pulling a Moravian patient under a shielded biobid. The lights flickered as the ship's electromagnetic shields, designed to protect sensitive patients from harmful radiation, discharged outward. The carefully calibrated pulse disrupted the attacking vessel's targeting systems without damaging the Nightingale's protected medical equipment. Only Krasik remained standing, having adapted quickly to the humans' surprising resistance. He cornered Elena against a surgical station, drawing a serrated blade from his armor. "You fight well for healers," he hissed, advancing cautiously. Elena grabbed the nearest tool, a pair of surgical scissors designed to cut through the toughest exoskeletons. "We're healers," she replied, deflecting his first strike with surprising skill. "But we trained on a world that tried to kill us every day." Their confrontation was brief but intense. Elena had no illusions about outmatching the Vrexian commander in prolonged combat, but she didn't need to win, only survive long enough. When security personnel arrived with specialized restraints, Krasik recognized his position was untenable. "Retreat," he ordered his warriors, "back to the ships." The Vrexians withdrew, dragging their incapacitated comrades. At the airlock, Krasik turned to Elena, who had followed at a safe distance. "You surprise me, Deathworlder. But this isn't finished." His cybernetic eye scanned her with unsettling intensity. "No prey escapes twice." As their ships disengaged, Elena returned to the medical bay. The staff was already treating injuries and repairing damage with the same efficiency they had shown in combat. "Everyone intact?" she asked, applying a regenerative patch to a cut on her arm. "All patients stable," Kari reported. "Minor injuries among staff, nothing serious." Captain Wade joined them, his expression grim. "They'll be back with reinforcements, and next time, they'll know what to expect." Elena nodded, looking at the young Moravian researcher who carried the coordinates to the ancient healing technology. "Then we'd better not be here when they return." The Harmony station loomed before the Nightingale, a massive ring structure rotating slowly against the backdrop of a blue-white nebula. As the medical ship approached, the station's bioluminescent panels pulsed in greeting patterns, shifting from azure to gold. "Docking protocols initiated," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced. "Confederation Medical Authority has granted us priority berth." Elena stood beside Captain Wei on the bridge, her uniform freshly pressed for their appearance before the council. The incident with the Vrexians had triggered an emergency session, and the fate of the Nightingale, and possibly human participation in frontier medicine, hung in the balance. 13 species represented, Wei said quietly. "Most have never seen humans in person." "Then we'll make a good impression," Elena replied, though uncertainty gnawed at her. The Nightingale had defended itself successfully, but at what cost to their mission? The council chamber was a perfect circle, illuminated by living light panels that shifted color with the emotional tenor of the proceedings. 13 representatives formed an arc before them, each species accommodated according to their unique biology. The Zalaxian delegate floated in a containment field, their gas-filled body rippling with iridescent patterns. The Thraxi representative perched on a gravity-adjusted platform, while the Moravian councillor's crystalline form refracted light across the chamber. This council will now evaluate the actions of the Earth vessel HMHS Nightingale, announced the Arcturian chairperson, their voice resonating through specialized acoustic channels. The sacred neutrality of medical ships is the foundation of Confederation peace. The Zalaxian representative's containment field drifted forward. These humans employed violence against Vrexian nationals who sought medical assistance. Their ship discharged weapons-grade electromagnetic pulses. Is this the behavior of healers? Murmurs rippled through the chamber as the light panels shifted toward crimson tones. The Moravian councillor rose, displaying crystal memories retrieved from the rescued scientists. The evidence shows clear Vrexian aggression against our research vessel. The humans saved 17 Moravian lives while defending their patients from pirates who have no respect for Confederation law. Debate surged through the chamber, the lights pulsing with competing emotional frequencies. At its core lay the question that had followed humans since their entry into galactic society. Could beings evolved to survive violence truly be dedicated to healing? Elena stepped forward, removing her medical coat to reveal the scars that marked her arms, remnants of Earth's harsh environment, and her time as a battlefield surgeon. "Counselors," she began, her voice steady. "We learned medicine precisely because our world hurt us. We understand pain intimately, which is why we excel at relieving it. The Vrexians assumed our compassion made us weak. They were mistaken." She gestured to the medical data projected behind her. Every defensive measure we employed was calculated to minimize harm. When forced to protect our patients, we used our knowledge of healing to defend without killing. Is this not the highest form of the healer's oath? The council deliberated for 3 days. Elena and Y waited, tending to the Moravian patients aboard the Nightingale while diplomatic channels hummed with argument. When they were finally summoned, the chamber's lighting had stabilized to a calm blue. "This council has reached a verdict," the Arcturian chairperson announced. The HMHS Nightingale acted within acceptable parameters when defending its patients and mission. Furthermore, this incident has demonstrated the unique value of human medical personnel in frontier regions. Wei's expression remained neutral, but Elena sensed his relief. Effective immediately, all Confederation medical missions to contested territories will include human staff. Your ability to protect patients while maintaining your healing mission is unprecedented. As they left the chamber, Wei leaned close to Elena. Intercepted communications suggest the Vrexians haven't abandoned their search for the ancient healing technology, and they haven't forgotten their defeat. Elena nodded grimly. "Then we better be ready when they find us again." Distress signal from Epsilon Colony, Navigator Patil announced, breaking the bridge's quiet routine. "Multiple casualties, unknown pathogen. Nearest medical vessel is 4 days out." Elena reviewed the incoming data with growing concern. Multiple species affected. That's unusual. Colony population includes Thraxi, Moravians, Arcturians, and a human science team, Rodriguez confirmed, all reporting similar symptoms despite different physiologies. Captain Wei studied the colony's location. Epsilon is remote, perfect place to hide. Set course immediately, maximum safe speed. The Nightingale dropped out of FTL, near a small terraformed moon orbiting a gas giant. Surface scans showed a well-established colony with agricultural domes and research facilities, and hundreds of life signs fluctuating dangerously. Elena led the first medical team to the surface. The colony's central medical facility was overwhelmed, patients of diverse species filling every available space. A human doctor, her face haggard from exhaustion, greeted them. "Dr. Reyes, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, colony physician. Thank the stars you're here. We've lost 17 colonists already, and conventional treatments aren't working." Elena examined the nearest patient, a Thraxi whose exoskeleton showed unusual discoloration. "How did it start?" "Mining team returned from the western sector 2 weeks ago. Thought it was simple exposure sickness at first, but then it started jumping between species. That shouldn't be possible with our different biologies." Working tirelessly, the Nightingale team converted cargo bays into isolation wards. Dr. Cowrie established a makeshift lab to analyze tissue samples from different species, looking for commonalities. "The pathogen adapts," he explained, showing Elena microscopic images. "It reconfigures itself to attack different biochemistries. I've never seen anything like it." After 48 hours without sleep, Elena found herself staring at test results, vision blurring from exhaustion. Something about the infection pattern nagged at her memory. "It behaves like the Terran Proteus parasite," she murmured. "Evolved to jump between terrestrial and marine hosts with completely different physiologies." A sudden realization made her reach for her own blood sample kit. Hours later, her suspicion was confirmed. "Humans show natural resistance," she told the assembled medical team. "Our immune systems evolved on a planet with thousands of pathogens. We're carrying antibodies that recognize this thing, or something similar enough." Working with Dr. Petrov, Elena developed a treatment derived from human antibodies. The first trials showed promising results. The disease progression slowed, then halted in test subjects. As the medical crisis began to stabilize, young engineer Raj Patel brought troubling news. "Doctor, I detected unusual energy signatures from the abandoned mining sector. Someone's using advanced technology down there. Definitely not colony equipment." Elena was reviewing his findings when long-range sensors detected multiple ships approaching, led by a familiar vessel. "Captain," Rodriguez reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Commander Krasik." The Vrexian's face appeared on screen, his cybernetic eye glowing more intensely than before. "Dr. Rice, Captain Wei," he greeted with false cordiality. "How fortunate to find you providing care to this remote colony. I believe you still possess something that belongs to us." "We're treating a pandemic, Commander," Elena replied. "This isn't the time." "Your mission is admirable," Krasik interrupted. "So I offer simple terms. Surrender the Moravian research data, or watch this colony die. My ships carry enhanced versions of the pathogen already affecting your patients. One canister in their atmospheric system will ensure no one survives." His reptilian features arranged into what might have been a smile. "You have 12 hours to decide. Healing or hiding. You cannot do both." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Captain Wei turned to Elena. "Options. Evacuation is impossible," she replied grimly. "We have hundreds of critical patients who can't be moved, and quarantine protocols prevent any ship from leaving. Then we stand our ground," Wei said. Again, the colony's central operations room transformed into an impromptu war room. Elena surveyed the gathered faces, her medical staff, colony security, and Captain Wei's officers, all awaiting a plan that didn't exist. "We can't surrender the coordinates," Elena stated, breaking the silence. "The technology could be weaponized, but we can't abandon these patients either." Wei nodded grimly. "Confederation reinforcements are 4 days out. We need to hold for 12 hours, then survive another 96. Colony Security Chief Marcus Rivera, a stocky man with cybernetic legs, activated a holographic map. "We have 30 security personnel with standard equipment, hardly a match for Vrexian raiders." "Then we fight differently," Elena said. "We're medical personnel on a Deathworld ship. We'll use what we know." The preparations began immediately. Dr. Kauri and Nurse Tanaka trained colonists in defensive techniques adapted from medical training. The Vrexian central nerve cluster is located here, Chowri demonstrated on a holographic model. "Precision matters more than strength. In the pharmacy lab, Dr. Petrov synthesized compounds designed to affect Vrexian physiology, non-lethal but debilitating. Their respiratory systems are particularly sensitive to this derivative of Earth eucalyptus, she explained to her makeshift assistants. Engineers modified medical equipment into defensive tools, surgical lasers recalibrated as cutting implements, diagnostic scanners repurposed to emit frequencies that disrupted Vrexian neural patterns, and isolation fields converted to barrier generators. The colonists, despite their physical limitations, volunteered alongside the human crew. A Thraxi biochemist, whose carapace still showed signs of the illness, worked tirelessly calibrating sensors to detect Vrexian biosignatures. Morivian crystal shapers created refraction barriers that could momentarily blind the raiders' targeting systems. Dawn broke over the colony as the first Vrexian shuttles breached atmosphere. Their main vessels engaged the Nightingale in orbit while ground forces descended toward the main medical facility. Everyone in position. Way ordered from the command center. Remember, we're defending patients. Hold your sectors. The first wave struck the western perimeter. Vrexian warriors, expecting minimal resistance, charged into carefully prepared isolation fields. Those who bypassed the barriers encountered medical staff wielding repurposed equipment with surprising effectiveness. Alina led the defense of the main hospital complex, coordinating response teams with the precision of a trauma surgeon. When Vrexians breached the southern entrance, she directed concentrated doses of paralytic agents through the ventilation system, temporarily immobilizing 3 raiders. The tide turned when a Vrexian blast struck the pediatric ward. Dr. Tanaka, without hesitation, threw herself between the attackers and a group of critical patients. Her sacrifice allowed others to retreat deeper into the facility, but the loss struck Alina like a physical blow. By midday, the colony's outer defenses had fallen. Alina coordinated the remaining staff from the central treatment area, where the most critical patients lay vulnerable. When the facility's reinforced doors finally buckled, Krasik himself led the assault team into the heart of the hospital. Enough resistance, he snarled, towering over medical staff protecting their patients. The coordinates, Dr. Reyes. Now. Their confrontation moved through the hospital as Alina retreated strategically, leading the Vrexian commander away from the patients. Their paths converged in the intensive care unit, where the young Morivian researcher lay connected to life support equipment. Through the window, Alina spotted Confederation ships appearing at the edge of the atmosphere, too distant to help immediately, but close enough to offer hope. "It's over, Commander," she said, positioning herself between Krasik and a row of critical patients. "Your ships are retreating." "Then I will complete this mission personally," he growled, raising his weapon. A support beam, damaged during the fighting, suddenly splintered above them. Without thinking, Alina lunged forward, pushing both the nearest patient and, unexpectedly, Krasik from harm's way as the structure collapsed. 3 months later, Alina stood at the observation deck of the rebuilt Nightingale, her newly regenerated leg still aching with phantom pain. Beyond the viewport, stars stretched into infinity, the same stars that had witnessed their ordeal at Epsilon Colony. The ship had been repaired, its hull bearing subtle marks where Vrexian weapons had scared the medical vessel. Like the ship, Alina bore her own new scars, some visible, others hidden beneath uniform and skin. "Thinking about Tanaka?" Captain Wee asked, joining her at the viewport. Alina nodded. "And the 17 we couldn't save at the colony. And the 342 you did save," Wei reminded her gently. The Nightingale had become famous throughout Confederation space. Educational materials across 1,000 worlds now featured images of the hospital ship and its human crew. The incident had transformed galactic perception of humans, not merely as physical curiosities from a dangerous world, but as beings whose capacity for healing matched their capacity for survival. The door slid open, revealing an unexpected visitor. Commander Krasik entered, his massive frame nearly filling the doorway. A Confederation security officer followed discreetly behind. The Vrexian had been granted special diplomatic permission to board. Dr. Reyes, he greeted, his translator rendering his hissing speech into standard galactic. My presence surprises you. Considering you tried to kill me 3 months ago. Yes, Alina replied evenly. A tactical necessity at the time. Krask stepped closer, his cybernetic eye studying her with analytical precision. You risked your life to save mine when the structure collapsed. This requires explanation. I'm a doctor. I don't choose who to save based on whether I like them. The Vrexian considered this, head tilted. After extensive interrogation, the Confederation discovered the truth about the ancient healing technology. What truth? There is no technology, Krask stated. The coordinates led to an abandoned research station. The real advancement was your people. He gestured to the ship around them. Deathworlders who choose to heal rather than conquer. The galaxy wasn't prepared for such a contradiction. Alina said nothing, waiting. My mission was based on false intelligence, Krask continued. Those who feared human medical advancement created the rumor of ancient technology to divert attention from the real concern, that humans might become essential to Confederation medicine. Before departing, he presented Alina with a ceremonial Vrexian blade, modified to serve as a surgical tool, the highest honor in his culture. May your enemies fear your mercy, Doctor, he said, a formal Vrexian blessing rarely offered to non-warriors. 1 week later, the Confederation formally established new protocols for frontier medicine. Human-staffed hospital ships would form the backbone of emergency response in contested territories. These vessels now bore a new marking alongside the traditional Red Cross, a warning in multiple galactic languages that read simply, "Do not assault a Deathworlder healing ship." Captain Wei joined Alina at the viewport as they prepared for their next mission. We didn't come to the stars to conquer, Alina said, watching distant worlds spin slowly below. But we will defend life wherever we find it. That's what makes us human. The Nightingale's engines powered up, carrying Earth's most dangerous healers back into the darkness between stars, where those in need awaited their gentle, formidable hands. As they accelerated into FTL, Alina thought of all who had doubted humanity's place among the stars. They had failed to understand a simple truth. Earth had forged humans into survivors, but humans had chosen to become healers. And throughout the galaxy, both enemies and allies were beginning to understand the wisdom of respecting that choice.